on this computer. Hello, everybody. Hi, my name is Tim Errickson. I am the artistic director of the Boomerang Theater Company, and I am so lucky today to be sitting here having a chat with some collaborator friends that are coming up with a project. Carl Holder is here, playwright, and Johnny G. Lloyd is up at the top there, on my computer at least. And they are working together on the next Baton Project reading, which is coming up on March 26th at 7:30 on Zoom. And the play is called Before, After, or Whatever. Let me give you a little background on these two fellas. Born in Gainesville, Florida, Carl Holder received his BFA in acting from SUNY Purchase and his MFA in dramatic writing from NYU Tisch. Carl has developed or performed work with Incubator Arts, EST, Dennis and Victoria Ross Foundation, The Tank, Fringe NYC, The Brick, Standard Toycraft, The Gym at Judson, House of Yes, Hearth Gods, the Gene Frankel Ice Factory, and the New Ohio. His play Until You Come Back to Me won the 2020 Goldberg Play Prize and was a finalist for the 2019 Newcomb Literary Arts Playwright Award. Carl has also been a semi-finalist for the Jerome Foundation at the Playwright Center. He is currently in the Brick's inaugural writers group Sound Lab, a residency developing fictional podcasts with playwrights, which is super exciting. And let's talk about Johnny. Johnny G. Lloyd is a New York-based playwright, producer, and dramaturg. He is the producing director of Inversion Theater and the director of artistic development at The Tank. Johnny's work as a playwright, producer, administrator, and artist has been seen at Theater at Judson, Theater in Quarantine, the Public Theater, La Mama, On Guard Arts, Corkscrew Theater Festival, 59 East 59, the Drama League, Dixon Place, and many, many more. All right, we got all this stuff out of the way. Yes, the two of you, the bios are incredible. So they just go on and on and on. So
everywhere below 14th Street, every closet, basement.
I personally have been trying to make sure I get a credit on every single street and avenue. So, the goal is to kind of have a little a chart.
Not systematized.
So. Yeah. If I perform on the street enough, it'll happen for me.
Yeah, I think at one time I had friends doing a show in the plaza at Union Square, sort of where the restaurant is now on that end near. And I was like, if you've done a show there, you've done a show in every part of town now. That is the last unclaimed corner.
There is something nice though, I will say, like when you get to do a show in a new neighborhood. I mean, obviously not right now, but when you get to do a show in a new neighborhood and you're like, the birds are chirping, I don't know where I am, it's the Lower East Side.
Yeah.
There's something very nice about that.
Yeah.
That I do.
It is lovely doing shows back in the hinterlands when we used to do shows in neighborhoods, when you would go to a place for you'd rehearse for a month and then you do a show for 3 or 4 weeks and you'd be like, this is my coffee spot. Yeah. And then you never see that place again. You never go back for years.
I famously had a card for the longest time after doing a show where I got every single punch except the one that would have given me a free and I'm not even making this up. A year later, I was with a group of people and they were going to that area. I wasn't going with them, but I'm parting of ways. I was like, please take this card because it has a free coffee and I'm never going to be there again.
Yeah.
Maybe it can be of use to you. And so I like to think that's what happened. So that circle closed.
It does. That's amazing. We are recording today on Wednesday, March 17th. Happy St. Patty's Day, boys.
Yes.
Oh, is that today?
Yeah, it is. You're not getting your corned beef and cabbage today or anything?
I only mark time through parades, and so since that's not
and that was canceled this year.
I just don't even know.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good way to mark time, actually. So we're almost in spring. Where people are getting vaccinated. Things are maybe starting to turn a corner a little bit. How are the two of you guys doing creatively and life-wise here in New York City during this time?
Well,
yeah, that was a big question. So just feel free to just, bat it around.
I feel very grateful. I mean, I think that the weather is changing, not to get all poetic, but the thaw is upon us. And I think that applies to a lot of different things that have felt stuck or frozen.
Yeah.
But I also feel like, I've been very blessed that my ups and downs throughout all of this have kept me in my apartment. And I've had a lot of things that have gone okay with regard to all of this. And I've tried to focus on that. And yeah, I'm excited about more things happening, more outside things.
Yeah,
You know,
with any
outdoor
luck.
events.
We get the weather back the way it was supposed to, where it was last week, I guess.
Little,
Johnny, how
little,
about you?
little by little.
Yeah, yeah, I think I'm the one person who's like, it's daylight savings. I feel rejuvenated. Like, this is the schedule my body wants to be on all the time, instead of being like, I lost an hour of sleep and now I want to like curl into a hole. Um, I will echo the feelings of like luck and gratitude. Just to, be feeling like in my body and in and able to process a moment in time instead of kind of having to react to a moment in time. I feel very lucky that that's where I'm at right now. Um, I'm excited. I feel like there's so many things about the digital sphere. There's so many things. I think I'm excited to re-enter a world where you can't constantly be busy because sometimes you have to go somewhere. I have discovered how much I miss the like 30 minutes of transit that like were required, and how much that like really kind of reset me, and also kept me from getting tired at exactly 2:45 p.m., which we're past now, so I'm good. But it's been, I think that's kind of what I've been missing, and I'm hoping, at the very least this spring to take nice long walks again. Hopefully that'll be in the cards and that can be some reset time. But yeah, but it's been the internet, what a moment. It's some trepidation moving forward just because nobody knows what it's going to be like when we back up again. But that's a better problem to have than lots of other problems. So
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And speaking of the digital world, let's talk about the play. So before, after, or whatever is the next iteration in our Boomerang Baton project, which allows artists to self-curate in a way, pass the baton around to people that they like and admire. And Carl, you were selected by Ying Ying Lee, who was our first participant for Dance Moms. And how did you and Ying know each other?
So Ying Ying and I were in a writers group together, and without a very long genesis story, I knew of Ying's performing and her writing, and I thought she was this wonderful person. And this group was sort of inherited by one organization with a group of writers who'd been working together for a long time, and then they were going to incorporate a few of their own writers. So Ying and I were into this group, but really Ying and I were like the group within a group. So she was my buddy throughout that whole process. And so I watched her write Dance Moms, and I loved that play. And then she became a dance mom, and I loved that play too. And yeah, and so I mean, honestly, I received this email when I was hanging out with another friend, and it was a wonderful offer in of itself, but all the more special because Ying is connected to it. So yeah, I love her.
And so, Johnny, how do you and Carl, do you have a history of working together? Have you worked on projects before?
I would say we've never, actually, I was about to say we've never worked on a project before. That is actually a lie. In 2017, with Ying Ying, I might add, did a project that Carl manifested, one will say, that was called Charades, where we all wrote short plays that were presented during a screening of the movie Charades.
Oh, wow.
And they were happening in real time. Like it was like we had the movie going, there was a play happening, and it was the most tired month that I've ever had. I just grad school, I was exhausted, I did not know like any, and so I wrote a true fever dream where people just said the word stamps over and over again, and that passed the test. But I think I met Carl probably around like 2014, 2015. I think I met Carl when did you do Typhoid Mary, Carl? Because I think that's right after or right before I actually met you, or I met you like during that show.
So we did it twice. It was in Ice Factory 2015, and then we did it in the spring of 2016. I think that sounds right.
Yeah, so I think we met in 2015. Yeah. We have a great mutual friend, Rosalind Grush, who is fantastic and will always get a shout out. But I remember going to to Typhoid Mary and just being like, this is an experience, and loving like every second of it. And ever since then, you know, whenever one of us has a project that we're working on, we'll kind of like have a moment and talk about it. You know, like I've sent him drafts of things that, and he's read things for me that I'm like, I need help, and like, you know, I try to repay the favor whenever I can. But I think that we are both like really drawn to just like these moments of like theatrical joy. Joy is maybe the wrong word. Splendor. Like these
Yes.
these moments of like, you know, like, okay, so like we're going and bam, like that, okay, that just happened. We have to deal with that now. And so it's always exciting for me to like kind of dig into Carl's brain. Not literally. Maybe
Not literally yet. And so how has working on before, after, or whatever been so far for the two of you? What's the process been like?
Well, in a weird way, it's like an old play and a new play, because I'm like the kind of weirdo that, like, I mean, we were talking about Post-its before this started, but like I like writing. I like writing. Who knew? I write a lot of things down, and I keep a lot of lists, and I do a lot of things that maybe I should admit to for fear of institutionalizing me. But it's part of my, there's always a lot cooking in addition to whatever I'm actually doing. Mm-hmm. And this really began as a joke. I wrote the first page of this, and I don't even know if I saved it as a proper document. I screenshotted it, and that was just the opening image, which is, I mean, I don't think this gives anything away, is a head exploding after a moment of great revelation. And I just sent it to a few of my friends when I was in grad school, and it was a joke. It was just like, oh yeah, this is what I'm working on, this play where the opening is someone's head exploding. And it made them laugh, and I thought it was funny, and it certainly got whatever feeling I had off my chest in that moment. And then I did like 17 other things. I mean, that's what grad school felt like, is 17 other things always. And then somehow I kept coming back to this, and then sort of wrote more of it almost as a joke. And then it became less and less of a joke. And then somewhere in the middle of the past year, it kind of struck me that there was a way to go even further into that image and that idea, and for it to be more than just kind of like, I feel overwhelmed right now. And so, yeah, and then I think that's when a real draft arrived. And honestly, it lived in a sort of interesting skeletal form until I knew that this opportunity was available, and that kind of forced it into being. And I think that's actually kind of been a really lovely little genesis, because once this process was something I knew was happening, I got to hand it over to Johnny and be like, and I think that it's been a really lovely anchoring now to go from so much of an interior idea that is really kind of lunatic in many ways to sort of centering that for myself, and now to be talking to someone about it, which feels really right and at the right time.
Yeah. And so, Johnny, with your background as both a dramaturg and a writer yourself, I mean, what Carl hands you this draft of a play that is part fever dream, part anxiety, part manifesto. Like, what's your response? How do you jump into it?
You know, there's always a little bit of jealousy. No, there's, I think, you know, one of the things that Carl and I talked about really early on is that, like, although I have worked really closely with directors, like as an associate director, as I've kind of experienced that world, but like I like to say that I am not a director, but what I can do is be a reflection, and be like an eye that has maybe who's paying attention to something that is broader than what you can really pay attention to when you're a playwright, and you really have to like dig in. And so much of the beginning of Genesis is about like digging into like each specific moment, digging into like the feeling of something, and I can kind of zoom out a little bit and be like, okay, so like this is how you're feeling, cool. Like how am I receiving this? Like how would one receive this if I knew none of these things? So I think that that's been a large part of, you know, my process and our process. Is I think we started the conversation with about half of a draft, and we talked about that. And then we talked about a full draft, and we're about to talk about another full draft, which I'm really excited about. But, you know, being able to look and say, okay, So, I think at their best, what a director has to offer is simultaneously like a curatorial eye and also like like the eye of the observer. And I think that in this moment, what that means is not necessarily something that's staged, but something that's like felt and thought through. And I feel like that's the way that that the dramaturgy of it has been able to kind of play out. Obviously, we've talked about exploding heads and what that all means, but and what that looks like.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's really been about trying to see what's on the page and then feel that, not through how I know it to be, but how I can kind of experience that and as though I don't know about it and what that experience is like.
And for the two of you who are making a play that has very strong images in it, for sure, right? We talk about exploding heads and things like that. Has the process of making a play that will sort of start its life on Zoom, has that been a factor rather than, in the able to start in a black box or a rehearsal room or an in-person process?
I mean, not to blow this question up too large, but I mean, I think a really interesting thing that's been on my mind in the way that Zoom has sort of disrupted and opened up the conversation right now, the way that that's really sort of hit me is, I think a lot of playwrights can relate to, you spend a lot of time writing things. Hopefully you get, fun development opportunities or just worthy development opportunities. If they're fun too, that's great. And you spend a lot of time submitting, in the hope that people are reading it. And so that can impact what you're writing. I think the short answer is it absolutely made me think about different things, knowing it would come up on Zoom. And it also brought up an interesting conversation of, okay, so what needs to exist on the page, just because this is a play that will also go other places, hopefully. And then the bigger art question of like, so actually, what does that mean even? Because when you're writing a play, you aren't necessarily writing for it to be read. You're hoping to inspire a group of people in some form to breathe the story to life. And now with that taking so many different shapes, it kind of, I don't know, it brings up an interesting question of what needs to be on there to convey the moment properly.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is exciting, I think.
Yeah, I think, the perhaps incendiary thing that I just thought of that I'm going to try out and then maybe retract is that I think that like when you're in the stage of writing that Carl's in right now with this play, it's almost less important to accurately describe the event of the thing, and more important to accurately get the feeling of the thing, because the event of how a mechanical thing might happen will definitely change as you move closer and closer to physical production, perhaps, let's say. But the emotion of the thing is either right or it's not right for that moment. And I think that what Zoom allows that we can use right now is we get to test out the emotional resonance of the moment, even if we can't exactly test out the physicality of that, and whether the physical is matching up with that emotional resonance. But I mean, how many plays have you seen where the physical execution of the moment is perfection, but it doesn't mean anything? That they didn't test the emotional resonance first.
Yeah,
that was less incendiary than I thought. I feel good about that.
Yes, very, very, very non-incendiary. Well done. When the two of you are working together, or when you're either of you is writing on your own or working on your own, are there things that you need creatively to sort of get your juices flowing? Are you early morning or late night writers? Are you wine versus water versus something else writers? Are you music versus silence? Yeah, whatever it is. I realize I couch this in my own prejudices, so I'm like, yes, I assume it's either water or wine. It's very Christian of me. So yeah. What's the process like?
I need a lot of time because I'm very naughty, and so I give myself a lot of space to eventually get to something. And probably also why all the notes, because that way something's happening even when I'm busy being naughty. So I really I also don't sleep long. I'm someone who kind of falls asleep early. I'm an old person that way. And then I don't sleep for very long. I wake up, and I'm especially strange right now because the clock thing. Yeah, so I tend to get up early in the morning, and then lock myself in my room with coffee for a long time. And hopefully something happens by the time other people wake up and need me to do things. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. But I would say that's like the most I can say. I've also, I've become a candle person in the pandemic.
Ooh,
And
That's nice.
I don't know if I needed another problem. So, but I found that I really like lighting candles. And that's it. I'm just gonna sit in that uncomfortable confession.
That's amazing, though.
I light candles now.
I love that. I think that's great. Johnny, what about you?
Yeah, I think with this particular project, I think a lot of the order of operation stuff that we've been talking about has been about who is leading what conversation when, and who needs to be the one talking and who needs to not be the one talking. And so we've kind of gone through, I think, a couple of different iterations of that, where it's like, okay, I need to, like Carl will say, I just need to listen for a while. I need to get it out of my head. Like, I have all these thoughts, but like, I need to hear something reflected, versus the conversation that we had today, where it was like, like I had questions about XXXXX, and then Carl was like, well, I'm thinking about changing this, and like it was my turn to listen, So I think this particular process has been a give and take in that way. That's been really exciting. In terms of like my personal creative work, which is in shambles right now, I generally am a morning writer, mid-morning writer, but also like it's like 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. is like my like sweet spot, and that has been the hardest period of time for me to like steal away from myself. And so I found that during the pandemic it's become much more erratic, which maybe is good, maybe it's bad. I feel like I've like gone through like a complete 180, because I used to be like a person who could only write with music, and now I can't write with music. Apparently, it's weird. I used to kind of, and then I used to be exclusively morning with coffee, and now it's like, actually, that might not be the case anymore. Maybe I'm going to switch to wine. Maybe I'll switch to water. Water might be right.
Wine morning. Maybe that's who you are now.
There you go.
Look, it's never too early for a glass of wine, or it's never too late for a glass of wine. I mean, it is. To be clear, for me personally, sometimes it is indeed too late for a glass of wine. But
I think it's when they're kicking you out. That's when it's too late, right?
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Well, if you think of 8 a.m. as 32 o'clock, then I think that really anything can happen.
Sky's the limit.
And where do you come down on the candles situation?
My boyfriend, who's right here, is a candle person. So I don't think of lighting them very often, and I definitely don't light them when I write. I'm trying to think if I do. We have a lot of plants right now, and I do feel like I have to like make sure that I think that the plants have been watered before I can write. I also, the real thing is that I think that there are people who write at home and people who write elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a person who writes elsewhere, which has been the primary difficulty in the last year. That's probably really what has thrown me completely off guard. I'm really a person who does like everything elsewhere. Like just like general thinking. General thinking is hard at home. Oh gosh, these walls. But so I generally like think about, if I like have something important to do, generally speaking, I will go on a walk and be like, I need to take time. Or I'll like, before times I would like hop on the subway and be like, today on the subway, I'm going to think about this as I play Candy Crush. And maybe as I crush the candies, this idea will come to me, or like I'll be able to structure this thing, or this is how this thing has to happen. But that time is gone. We'll get it back eventually.
Yes, we'll get it back. Sliding right from that into the next thing, what's the best piece of advice anybody's ever given you? And it could be about writing, or it could be about anything really. But like I was thinking, the reason I asked this question is because I was in a workshop like maybe 6 months ago with Jose Rivera, and he was talking about how writers are only architects of time. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're only architects of time. You decide how much time we spend with this character or that character. You decide how much time the audience gets to see them, or how much time or not time they get to spend with their thoughts and needs. And so therefore you craft it out of time. And I was like, right, all over the walls. And so I started trying to apply that. And so I wonder if other people are sort of have that a piece of advice like that in their back pocket that sometimes really, colors how they work on things or influences the way that they sort of apply things, either when they get stuck or even when they're doing a new project that something has been skeletal for a long time, but now it's coming more to fruition, or how you schedule it when you're on the subway. Or is there something that sort of is a North Star for you? I overtalked the shit out of that question. Please just save me.
The only reason I want to credit this to one person, but I also don't actually know if they told it to me. It might be more of an emotion than an actual piece of advice, but I took it as a piece of advice. So I went to Columbia for my MFA in writing. One of my mentors there was Lloyd, and we had this conversation, and the message that I took from the conversation, whether or not she actually said it, is don't apologize for your ideas or what you are wanting or trying to do. And I think that's I think that a lot of, I've certainly felt it myself. I think that a lot of the landscape of the American theater, especially for writers who you do a lot of work and then maybe the thing happens, but you do all the work before, often, especially at the stage that we're at, before whether the thing is happening or not. You kind of have to do the work first. And I think that can cause a situation where you're okay, well, I need to tailor this to whatever I think is going to make the most sense, or et cetera, or I need to tailor myself to whatever is going to make the most sense so that I can have them more of these opportunities. And the idea of just never going back and being it's important to say I'm sorry. Obviously it can be very important to say I'm sorry, but to be to not apologize for what you believe you need to bring into a room, or what you believe your strong suits are, whether or not that matches up with what someone else has said. That's the message that I took. Don't know if she said that. I don't think she did, but that's how I processed whatever actually great advice that she gave me, and I just can't remember what anyone said ever because I am probably selfish.
That's fine though. Let's give Lynn credit for that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Also, I mean, she's a genius. She's an actual literal genius. So
I wasn't
anything. I think she's probably said.
Oh gosh.
You're up. Sorry, pal.
No, it's great. I mean, this is cheesy to start off with, but the first thing that came to my mind when you asked this question is, I just feel like I've been very fortunate in that I've had a lot of teachers and people kind of appear for me in my life. That's something I feel very fortunate for. I think part of it is that I'm just a simp in that way. I'm if someone teach me, I really want to learn. But I've been lucky that call has been answered a lot. And I think something that's actually the same thing, but sort of it's the same thing said two different ways via three different people. An acting teacher, a great actor also, Reed Birney, who I was in scene study with for a little while, and he became a good friend, and he's just a nice person. And something that he says that I think he means it about acting, of course, but I think it's applicable to everyone, even non-artists, which is kind of getting past whether or not this is something that you have to do, and then just getting past that. And the way he refers to it is if you're a lifer or not. And if you're a lifer, then this is what you're going to do. And I relate to that because in a self-deprecating way, he's referring to how he at times looks back on the gripes and the ways that he made things more difficult for himself. And it all seems so silly because what's the point? This is what you do. And I feel like I really relate to that. And there's something sort of zen and just kind of, accepting that that's what you're doing. And then a wonderful writing teacher I had in grad school, Rina Groff, quoted Leonard Cohen. So we're getting two people at once this way. But in saying, you have to not sweat the masterpiece so that you can fall into the masterpiece. And I'm probably now butchering everyone's quotes of that, so forgive me. But there's something about that too that I feel like is another reminder that helps me a lot, which is that as much as there is all this work to do, you're also already doing it. And there's an ease to that helps everything when you sort of realize, oh, I'm doing it. This is what it is. Yeah.
I think those are both really terrific pieces of advice. I think, I think that those are whatever little nugget you can take out of those two things is just so helpful in terms of just keeping everybody's head on straight. You know, like managing expectations and knowing your value, I think are terrific. Well, we have a project coming up together, which again is March 26th, 7:30 p.m. The play is called Before, After, or Whatever. It's got a great cast. And so thank you both for putting that together. That's incredible. And if people who are watching this and who are coming to see the show, if they wanted to see more work from the two of you or follow you, where's the best place for them to see more of your stuff? Johnny, I'll start with you.
You can go to my website, which is jgloyd.com. And, like, check out the tank. Like, odds are I'd probably talk to someone. Like, I might be working on a show. You never know. That's at thetanknyc.org. We've got a bunch of really great artists.
And the Tank, just for anybody who does not know, the Tank is a performance venue and producing organization here in the city that does amazing work. And I'm sure, like all organizations in the city, could use donations or all kinds of things, because they a lot of venues here in town have been shut down and diminished for a little while by what this pandemic has done. So if anybody's got some extra dollars in the pocket, I'm sure the Tank would love to have them.
Always.
Yeah. Carl, what about you? Where can people find more of your stuff?
Oh, I've got one of those websites too. It's just my name, carlholder.com. All things pertaining to Carl. And then the Brick has been a wonderful place for me this past year. I wrote a podcast with them inside of Sound Lab, alongside some other really exciting writers and really exciting projects. And as things near toward the summer, and once forums start to manifest, all of those are going to have some kind of life too. So check out the Brick and Sound Lab, and also check out the Tank. Actually, all those places, because they're all doing really good things for people who are going to need that help. So.
Yeah, and the Brick, a place that's near and dear to my heart, from Michael and some other people, and now that transition that's happened there with leadership into a new and exciting phase of that organization. So it's a great place that, if you have a couple of dollars and you're looking to give it to someone, the Brick is a great place to sort of donate it. The support that they give to artists, the support that they give to both artists and the Tank as well, both the support the home that they make for artists, both of them are really worthy of your investment. So, all right, gentlemen, we have wrapped this up. Thank you so much for spending some time with me, and we'll see everybody next week for sure for the reading.
Yes.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.